It started in a very ordinary way, the kind of day people forget easily. The city was awake, but quiet, moving at its own slow pace. Streets were full of people who were busy with their own worries, dreams, and unfinished thoughts. Among them were two people who had never seen each other before, yet life was slowly guiding them toward the same moment. One of them had learned to live alone, not because they wanted to, but because life had taught them not to expect too much from anyone. They woke up every day, followed the same routine, and carried a calm face that hid many untold stories. There was work to do, bills to manage, and responsibilities that never seemed to end. Love was not something they were looking for anymore. It felt like a chapter that had already closed. Even if it never really began, the other lived with a softer heart, but a tired mind. They still believed in good things, yet disappointment had slowly made its home inside them. Every smile came with caution, every hope with fear. They had trusted before and paid the price, learning that not everyone stays. Still, deep inside, there was a small corner that wished life could surprise them again that day. Fate didn't arrive with fireworks or loud signs. It came quietly. A simple moment, a small interaction that felt unimportant at first. Maybe it was a shared space, a short conversation, or a brief exchange of words that lasted only a few seconds. Nothing special on the surface, but something shifted inside both of them. Their eyes met just for a moment. Not in a dramatic way, but long enough to feel familiar. There was no rush of emotions, no instant promises, just a strange comfort, like meeting someone you didn't know but somehow recognized. They moved on with their day, not realizing that this tiny moment would soon change everything. Later that evening, both found themselves thinking about that brief encounter. It didn't make sense. Why would such a small thing stay in their mind? They tried to brush it off, telling themselves it was nothing. Life was busy. There were more important things to worry about. Yet the thought kept returning, gently, without force. Days passed, and life continued as usual. But somehow, paths crossed again. This time, there was a little more awareness. A smile that came naturally. A conversation that lasted longer than expected. Words flowed easily, without effort. There was no pretending, no need to impress. It felt safe to speak, safe to listen. They learned small things about each other. Not the deep stories yet, but the little details that matter more than people realize. The way one laughed softly, trying not to draw attention. The way the other listened carefully, as if every word mattered. These moments didn't feel planned. They felt real. Still, both kept a distance. Past experiences had taught them to be careful. Getting close meant risking pain. Trust was not something given icily anymore. So they stayed somewhere between strangers and friends. Unsure of what this connection was becoming at night, thoughts grew louder. One wondered if it was foolish to feel this way again. The other questioned whether this was just another temporary presence in life. Yet neither could deny the calm they felt when thinking about the other. It wasn't excitement. It was peace. Conversations became more frequent. Sometimes short, sometimes long. Sometimes about serious things, sometimes about nothing at all. There was comfort in the silence, too. They didn't feel the need to fill every moment with words. Just being present felt enough. Slowly, walls began to crack. Not all at once, but piece by piece. They started sharing little truths, small disappointments, simple dreams. Nothing heavy yet, but enough to show honesty. With every shared moment, trust grew quietly, without announcement. One evening, after a long day, one of them spoke about feeling tired of pretending to be strong all the time. The other listened without interrupting, without judgment. That moment mattered more than either of them realized. It was the first time someone truly listened, not to reply, but to understand. From that day on, something changed. They became a part of each other's daily thoughts. A message could change the mood of an entire day. A missed reply could cause concern. These feelings were new and confusing, but also warm. Still, neither spoke about love. It felt too early, too risky. They both knew that once words are spoken, they cannot be taken back. so they let actions speak instead. Care showed up in small ways. Remembering details, checking in during hard days, being present when it mattered. Sometimes, fear tried to take control. Doubts whispered late at night. What if this ends the same way? What if getting close only leads to another goodbye? But something felt different this time. Not perfect. Just honest life outside this connection remained challenging. Work stress, family expectations, personal struggles didn't disappear. But having someone who understood made those burdens feel lighter. They didn't solve each other's problems. They simply stood beside each other. As weeks turned into months, the connection deepened naturally. No pressure. No promises. Just two people slowly choosing each other every day. They still hadn't labeled what this was. Maybe because labels bring expectations. And expectations can break fragile things. There were moments of awkwardness, too. Misunderstood words. Missed calls. Silence that felt heavier than intended. But instead of walking away, they talked. Not perfectly, but honestly. That effort mattered. One quiet moment changed everything. Sitting together, sharing a simple space, they realized how comfortable they had become. The kind of comfort that doesn't happen overnight. The kind that feels like home. Neither said it out loud, but both felt it. This was no longer just a coincidence. It was the beginning of something real. Something that deserved care, patience, and courage. They didn't know what the future held. They didn't know how hard things would get. But for the first time in a long while, they were willing to find out together. And that simple choice marked the true beginning of their story. Life slowly began to change after that quiet beginning. Not in loud or dramatic ways, but in soft moments that carried meaning. Days felt different now. Mornings came with a sense of curiosity, and nights ended with thoughts that no longer felt empty. Something was growing between them. Even though neither dared to name it, they started spending more time together. It's not because they planned it, but because it felt natural. A short meeting often turned into long conversations. A simple check-in became a deep talk without realizing how much time had passed. There was comfort in these moments, like they didn't have to pretend or explain themselves. Little habits formed. One liked to share small details about the day, even things that seemed unimportant. The other listened with genuine interest, remembering things that most people would forget. That attention made a difference. It made both feel seen. Laughter slowly returned to their lives. Not forced laughter, but the kind that comes when you feel safe. Jokes that only they understood. Smiles that appeared without effort. Even silence felt warm, not awkward. They could sit together without speaking and still feel connected. But real life doesn't pause for emotions. Responsibilities continued. Work pressure increased. Family expectations became heavier. Sometimes stress made one pull away without meaning to. Messages became shorter. Replies came late. The other noticed and felt the familiar fear rising again. Instead of assuming the worst, they chose to speak. Not perfectly, but honestly. One admitted feeling overwhelmed. The other admitted feeling worried and afraid of being pushed away. That conversation wasn't easy, but it mattered. It showed that both were willing to face discomfort instead of running from it. Trust began to grow through moments like these. Not because everything was smooth, but because problems were handled with care. They learned that understanding doesn't always mean agreement, but it does mean respect. They shared more of their pasts now. Not all at once, but slowly, piece by piece. Stories of disappointment, of hopes that didn't work out, of people who promised to stay and didn't. These conversations were emotional, but also healing. It felt lighter to finally be honest. One spoke about feeling invisible in the past, about giving too much and receiving too little. The other spoke about building walls after being hurt, about learning to depend only on themselves. Listening to each other's pain created a deeper bond than happiness ever could. Care showed up in small ways. A message during a stressful day, a reminder to rest. Checking in when one seemed quiet. These things may have looked simple from the outside, but they meant everything. Sometimes doubt still appeared. Late at night, thoughts questioned whether this connection would last. Fear whispered that getting attached only leads to loss. But every time doubt appeared, reality responded with kindness, patience, and consistency. They didn't rush anything. No big promises. No dramatic words. Just steady presence. That slow pace made the connection stronger. It allowed trust to settle instead of being forced. There were moments when one felt closer than ever. And moments when distance appeared without warning. Life demanded attention elsewhere sometimes. Instead of letting distance turn into silence, they learned to communicate. Even a short message saying, "I'm tired today," made a difference. One day, during a quiet conversation, they realized how much they had become part of each other's routine. Not in a controlling way, but in a comforting one. Their days felt incomplete without that familiar connection. They began to support each other's dreams. Encouraging words replaced doubt. One reminded the other of their strength when they forgot it themselves. That support created a sense of partnership, even though nothing had been defined yet. Still, fear stayed close. What if this was just another phase? What if reality broke this connection too? These thoughts weren't spoken often, but they existed in the background. A small misunderstanding tested them. Words were taken the wrong way. Feelings were hurt without intention. Silence followed, heavy and uncomfortable. In the past, this might have ended everything. This time, it didn't. After hours of overthinking, one reached out. Not with blame, but with honesty. The other responded with openness instead of defense. They talked it through, slowly and carefully. That moment proved something important. They were willing to fight for understanding. After that, the bond felt different, stronger, more real. It wasn't just about feelings anymore. It was about choice. Choosing to stay, choosing to listen, choosing to care even when it felt hard. They still hadn't spoken about love. Maybe because they already felt it in actions, in patience, in effort. In the quiet comfort they gave each other, days continued, filled with both calm and chaos. But through it all, they kept showing up. Not perfectly, but sincerely. They didn't know what challenges awaited them. They didn't know how much pain and joy the future would bring. But one thing was clear now. This connection was no longer fragile curiosity. It was becoming something deeper, something meaningful. And as they moved forward, unknowingly closer to a turning point, both felt it in their hearts. Whatever this was, it mattered too much to ignore. And that realization quietly prepared them for the test that was yet to come. Life, as it often does, decided to test them. What had been comfortable and slowly growing now faced challenges that neither expected. The quiet days filled with laughter and small joys suddenly seemed distant. Life's pressures intensified, creating distance between them that was hard to bridge. It began with small things. Messages delayed, plans changed, and the unpredictability of life created misunderstandings. Each of them carried personal struggles that grew heavier by the day. Work demanded more hours, family obligations added stress, and unexpected events pulled them apart. At first, it seemed manageable, but the tension quietly built up.
Layer by layer.
They wanted to stay connected, but the weight of reality made it difficult. One felt overwhelmed and confused, unsure how to balance everything. The other tried to be patient, but worry crept in. Questions without answers formed in silence, and the fear of losing what had become precious settled in their hearts. Every delay or small mistake felt larger than it should, magnified by the distance that life had forced between them. One day, a miscommunication escalated. Words were misunderstood, emotions spilled over, and frustration broke through their calm. It was not intentional, but feelings were hurt. Silence followed, heavy and painful. Neither knew how to start again. The laughter, the comfort, the peace, they all seemed so far away. Fear of losing each other became stronger than any desire to stay. They both reflected on their past experiences, realizing that running away from problems had always been easier. Both feared repeating old patterns. Each night became a battle between hope and fear. One wondered if this connection would survive the pressure. The other questioned whether it was worth the emotional struggle. The thought of losing someone who had become so important was unbearable. Despite the strain, small gestures kept them connected. A message sent at night, a small question about the other's day, quiet concern over something minor. These were tiny lifelines. They reminded each other that even in silence, the bond was still alive. These moments, though small, mattered deeply. They were proof that care had not disappeared. Only buried under stress, both began to realize that this test was not a punishment, but a turning point. It was a moment to see how strong their connection really was. It was the kind of challenge that could either end everything or make it stronger. Each had to confront their own fears, insecurities, and doubts. And each had to find courage they didn't know they possessed. One evening, a conversation finally broke the tension. It was hesitant at first, full of pauses and careful words. Each expressed frustrations and disappointments, but also their desire to stay connected. For hours, they talked about what they had been feeling, about the misunderstandings and the distance that life had imposed. Neither blamed the other. Instead, they listened, really listened, and began to understand. Through tears, quiet sighs, and vulnerable moments, a realization emerged. Love, real love, was not only about the easy moments. It was about facing struggles together. It was about patience when things went wrong, about forgiveness when mistakes happened, and about courage when fear threatened to take over. They spent days after that conversation rebuilding trust. Carefully and gently. Every shared thought, every effort to communicate, became part of the healing process. Slowly, the laughter returned, first small, then growing. The comfort that had felt lost came back in fragments, each one more precious than the last. During this time, they learned to rely on each other without losing themselves. Support became mutual. When one felt weak, the other provided strength without judgment. When one felt anxious, the other offered patience. This reciprocity created a bond stronger than before. It's built not on perfection, but on resilience and understanding. They also began to reflect on how far they had come. From two strangers sharing a small moment to two people who had learned to face life's challenges together, it was remarkable. They realized that love was not about constant happiness, but about the willingness to endure struggles, to fight for connection, and to grow together. However, the tests were not completely over. Life had more challenges waiting, each one different, each one demanding new strength. But now they knew that together they could face more than they had imagined. They had survived miscommunication, distance, and fear. Each test had made the bond more real, more resilient, even in moments of doubt. They remembered the small gestures that had kept them connected. A message that said, "I am thinking of you," could heal days of tension. A quiet smile in passing could restore hope. Simple presence became a powerful reminder that love, even tested, could survive. They also learned that patience was essential. Not everything could be solved at once. Healing took time. Understanding took time. Trust took time. But they were willing to give it because they knew the connection was worth it. By the end of this challenging period, quiet strength had settled between them. They had learned to communicate, to forgive, to listen, and to care deeply. The bond that seemed fragile at the beginning of the struggle had become sturdy and dependable. Love was no longer just a feeling. It was a choice, a daily decision to stay and grow together. This part of their story was emotional, filled with fear, pain, and uncertainty, but it was necessary. It showed that love was not easy, that real connection required work, courage, and honesty. And though life would continue to test them, they now had proof that they could endure, that they could face challenges together and emerge stronger. Through this test, they realized the depth of what they had. It was not just attraction or fleeting affection. It was something deeper, something meaningful, something worth holding on to. And with that realization, they stepped into the next chapter, ready for whatever life had to offer, knowing that they had each other to lean on. Life has a way of teaching lessons in unexpected ways. Even after overcoming difficult challenges, their journey was far from easy. Just when they felt stronger and more connected, Circumstances tested them in ways they never expected. A sudden change, a loss, or an unexpected event created a gap between them. It was not the kind of problem that could be solved with words alone. This test was deeper, more painful, and it forced them to confront the value of what they had. One of them faced a difficult personal situation. Perhaps it was a loss, a challenge at work, or a family problem that demanded all their attention. The other watched helplessly, wishing they could do more. They wanted to be there to offer comfort, but life made it difficult. Messages went unanswered. Calls were brief. The silence felt heavier than ever. Both felt the strain, yet neither stopped caring. During this period, doubts crept in. They questioned whether they could handle such intense emotions together. Fear whispered that love might not be enough. One night, as they both reflected alone, tears came silently. Painful realizations formed. Life could take people apart, even if they wanted to stay close. This moment of vulnerability, though frightening, also sparked clarity. The realization was simple, but profound. Love is not just about joy and comfort. It is about presence, effort, and courage in the hardest moments. One realized that even if the other was physically distant, the bond they had created could withstand the tests of life. Love meant believing in each other, even when everything else seemed uncertain. It took courage for one to reach out, not with anger or blame, but with honesty and vulnerability. They admitted fear, pain, and the longing to stay connected despite everything. The other responded with the same honesty, admitting how scared and helpless they had felt. That conversation did not solve all problems instantly, but it opened a path for understanding and healing. Days and weeks that followed were filled with small steps of care and support. Messages checked in during tough moments, small gestures of comfort, and consistent presence showed that neither had given up. Slowly, the gap that life had created began to shrink. The connection, tested and strained, proved its strength through these small acts. They also began to reflect on their personal growth. Each realized that challenges had shown them the depth of their feelings and the strength of their bond. They understood that love was not only about happiness, but about enduring struggles together. Every hardship faced, every moment of doubt, and every act of patience had made the bond deeper and more meaningful. One quiet evening, after days of careful communication, they met. Not in a dramatic or planned way, but in a natural moment where both could be present. The conversation was soft, honest, and full of care. They spoke of fears, regrets, and hopes for the future. In that moment, the fragility of life and the value of their connection became clear. They realized that love was about being brave enough to stay. Even when it was hard, they began to support each other in ways they had not before. Emotional support became stronger. Words of encouragement replaced doubt. The small efforts that had kept them connected earlier now turned into actions that strengthened trust. One learned to step forward when the other struggled. The other learned to accept support instead of trying to carry everything alone. Together, they built a new sense of partnership, one that was mature and grounded. This period also taught them forgiveness, not only toward each other, but toward themselves. Mistakes, misunderstandings, and past regrets were acknowledged and released. They learned that holding on to resentment only weakens bonds, while understanding and forgiveness make them stronger. Love, they realized, is not about perfection, but about choosing each other despite flaws. The experience left a mark on both of them. They became more patient, more compassionate, and more aware of the effort required to maintain a connection that matters. They realized that every act of care, no matter how small, contributes to the strength of love. A simple message, a gentle gesture, or a moment of attention could heal days of stress and fear. Even in moments of weakness, they found hope. Hope in the bond they had nurtured, hope in their ability to support each other, and hope in the future they could build together. This hope became the guiding light through difficult times, reminding them why they had chosen to stay connected. By the end of this phase, they understood something important. Life would always bring challenges, but love that is honest and resilient can endure. They had learned that the strongest connections are tested not during the easy moments, but in the difficult ones. And having faced this test, they felt prepared for whatever life had next, with hearts full of courage, understanding, and hope. This chapter of their story was not filled with easy joy. It was emotional, intense, and at times painful. Yet it brought clarity and strength. It showed that true love requires presence, effort, and bravery. And most importantly, it proved that even when life feels like it is pushing people apart, the bond of love can hold firm, ready to carry them into the next chapter together. After enduring challenges, misunderstandings, and the tests of life, their connection had grown into something rare and profound. The lessons they had learned along the way shaped them, and the love they shared had become steady, patient, and resilient. They were no longer two uncertain individuals, but companions who had chosen each other through fear, doubt, and hardship. Everyday life was no longer taken for granted. They noticed the little things, the warmth of a shared smile, the comfort of a gentle word, the calm that came from simply being near each other. There was a quiet joy in knowing that someone cared deeply, consistently, and without expectation. These moments, small and ordinary, held more meaning than any grand gesture could. Their days were filled with presence and intention. Tasks and responsibilities still existed as they always would, but love was no longer hidden in the cracks of daily life. It was actively nurtured, expressed, and felt. They had learned that love is not only in words or romantic moments, but in reliability, care, and shared effort. Occasionally, challenges would appear, as life never truly stops testing people, but they faced them differently now. Instead of fear and hesitation, they approached difficulties together, knowing that understanding, patience, and communication could overcome most obstacles. They had learned that problems were not threats to their bond, but opportunities to strengthen it. Through shared struggles, they had also developed a deep sense of empathy. They understood each other's fears, insecurities, and dreams. They could sense when the other needed support, even without words. This empathy created a quiet, unwavering intimacy, a feeling of being completely seen and accepted. It was a love rooted not just in emotion, but in understanding. They celebrated joys together, whether big or small. Achievements, surprises, or moments of laughter were more meaningful because they were shared. But even ordinary days, without anything remarkable happening, felt significant. The presence of someone who truly cared made every moment richer. As time passed, they reflected on their journey. They remembered the uncertainty of the beginning, the tests of patience, the moments of pain, and the times when they almost lost each other. Each memory became a reminder of how far they had come, and how much effort and courage it had taken to arrive at this place of stability and happiness. They realized that love is not about perfection, flawless romance, or constant happiness. It is about persistence, effort, and choosing each other repeatedly. It is about forgiving mistakes, offering support, and valuing presence over grand gestures. And most importantly, it is about understanding that life will always have challenges. But love endures when hearts are committed and honest. Their connection also inspired growth in both. They became more patient, compassionate, and resilient. They encouraged each other to pursue personal dreams, support family obligations, and maintain individuality. Love did not confine them. It strengthened them, giving courage and comfort in equal measure. One of the most remarkable aspects of their bond was its quiet strength. It did not need constant affirmation or dramatic declarations. The love was evident in actions, in consistency, and in the way they held space for each other. There was a sense of security knowing that no matter what came, they could face it together. They also came to understand that love is a choice, not merely a feeling. Each day, they chose to care, to listen, and to support. Even when tired, frustrated, or busy, they made the effort because the connection mattered more than temporary discomforts. That choice, made repeatedly, built a foundation that could withstand time and life's uncertainties. As the story reached its quiet culmination, they experienced a deep sense of fulfillment. not because everything was perfect, but because they had faced imperfection together. They had endured, grown, and chosen each other consistently. That realization brought a calm joy that was more profound than excitement or infatuation. It was a joy rooted in authenticity, trust, and shared experience. Moments of tenderness became more meaningful. A simple hand held in passing, a knowing glance, or a quiet word of encouragement carried weight. These gestures reminded them that love is often in the subtle, small expressions rather than grand, dramatic actions. And the beauty of it was that both appreciated and reciprocated these gestures naturally. Looking forward, they faced life with hope and confidence. While challenges would inevitably continue, they were no longer daunting. Together, they had learned the value of patience, communication, and perseverance. They knew that as long as they chose each other, they could endure whatever came their way. Their story, in the end, was not about fairy tale perfection. It was about humanity, vulnerability, resilience, and choice. It was about two people finding something rare and beautiful through effort, courage, and unwavering honesty. The love they shared was not just felt but demonstrated, lived, and nurtured every day. And so, the most beautiful and emotional part of their journey was not in a single moment of triumph, but in the steady, enduring way they chose each other. Through trials, doubts, and ordinary days, they built a love that could withstand time, distance, and life's unpredictability. That love, quiet yet powerful, became their greatest story, a story not of perfection, but of persistence, care, and unshakable connection. Life moved on, but their bond grew stronger with every day. By now, they had learned that love was not just an emotion, but a series of choices, small and large, repeated every day. It was in the quiet moments, in the shared routines, and in the understanding that even when words failed, presence spoke loudly. They found joy in the ordinary. A morning coffee together, a short walk in the evening, or a simple conversation about nothing at all became treasures. These moments were not dramatic, but they carried deep meaning. They showed that love was built in consistency and attention, not in grand gestures alone. They also discovered the importance of balance. Each maintained personal goals, friendships, and responsibilities, while still nurturing the bond that connected them. They realized that love did not demand possession or control, but supported growth. They encouraged each other's ambitions, cheered each other's achievements, and offered comfort in times of failure. Challenges still appeared, as life never truly becomes easy. Yet their approach had changed. Where once fear and doubt had dominated, now communication, patience, and trust guided their actions. Problems became opportunities to demonstrate care, understanding, and resilience. They had learned that conflicts were not threats to their bond, but chances to strengthen it. They faced difficult times together. Unexpected setbacks, health concerns, or family obligations sometimes tested their patience. In those moments, instead of reacting with anger or withdrawal, they leaned on each other. They shared burdens, offered encouragement, and reminded themselves why they chose to stay committed. This partnership made life's difficulties more bearable and brought a sense of security neither had experienced before. Through these experiences, they grew emotionally and mentally. They learned empathy, compassion, and the subtle art of listening. They understood each other's moods, fears, and desires without needing constant explanations. A small gesture, a simple word, or even a quiet presence was enough to convey love and support. This understanding became a core part of their connection. They celebrated successes together, whether personal or shared. But even when life was ordinary or stressful, they found ways to appreciate each other. A thoughtful message, a gentle smile, or a small act of kindness became reminders of their commitment. They realized that love is not only found in milestones, but in the day-to-day choices to care and be present. One of the most important lessons they learned was forgiveness. Mistakes, misunderstandings, and past regrets were handled with patience and compassion. They understood that holding on to resentment weakened bonds, while letting go strengthened them. Each apology, and each act of understanding deepened their trust and brought them closer. They also learned the value of celebrating vulnerability. Sharing fears, insecurities, and doubts did not push them apart. Instead, it created space for compassion, understanding, and support. Being vulnerable became a strength, not a weakness. It reinforced the depth of their connection and created a sense of safety neither had felt before. Time together was precious, and they became mindful of it. They no longer rushed moments or took presents for granted. Even brief conversations or short interactions were meaningful. They understood that love grows in the attention given to others, not just in emotions felt privately. The bond they had developed also inspired hope. Not hope for perfection, but hope for persistence. They knew life would continue to challenge them, but they had confidence that together they could face anything. This hope was quiet, steady, and deeply reassuring. They also realized the importance of shared dreams and plans. Not every plan needed to be grand or public. Even simple goals like supporting each other through work challenges or creating small personal achievements became meaningful when shared. These plans reinforced the sense that they were partners in life. Facing the world together, love, by this stage, had become a foundation. It was reliable, enduring, and flexible. They did not need constant reassurance because their actions continually proved commitment. Every shared smile, every supportive gesture, and every act of care reinforced the bond that had survived doubt, distance, and difficulty. They grew more patient with themselves and each other. They understood that no one is perfect, and love is not about perfection. It is about acceptance, effort, and commitment. Mistakes were met with understanding, and success was celebrated together. This balance created a sense of peace and fulfillment that was profound and lasting, even in quiet. Ordinary moments, their hearts connected. The bond they had cultivated became a source of strength and calm. A morning greeting, a shared look, or a simple touch carried meaning far beyond the immediate moment. These moments showed that love is lived in daily choices, not only in dramatic events. As they continued their journey, both felt gratitude. Gratitude for the struggles that taught them patience, for the challenges that deepened understanding, and for the quiet presence of the other through life's highs and lows. They recognized that the beauty of their story was not in perfection, but in persistence, understanding, and shared effort. In the end, their love was enduring. Not flawless, not without challenges, but real, honest, and strong. It had been tested and nurtured, grown through care, vulnerability, and shared experience. They faced the world together, aware of life's uncertainties, but confident in the connection they had built. It was a love that could last, not because life was easy, but because they chose each other, day after day. This final part of their story is a testament to human resilience and the power of connection. It reminds that love is not only about grand gestures or perfect moments, but about choosing, caring, and being present through patience, forgiveness, and understanding. They created a bond that was beautiful, emotional, and enduring, the kind of love that leaves a lasting impression and inspires anyone who witnesses it. Life continued, as it always does, bringing new experiences, moments of joy, and occasional challenges. By now, their connection had grown into a deep, comforting bond. The lessons from the past had shaped them, creating a love that was patient, understanding, and resilient. Yet, even with this strength, life had a way of introducing surprises that tested them in quiet but meaningful ways. They found beauty in the ordinary. Shared mornings, simple meals, and unspoken glances became moments of quiet happiness. Every small interaction reminded them of the bond they had nurtured. It was no longer just about excitement or passion, but about trust, respect, and the comfort of knowing someone truly understood them. Even as life's responsibilities increased, they maintained balance. Personal goals, work commitments, and family duties coexisted with their relationship. They had learned that love thrives not by holding on too tightly, but by supporting each other's growth. Each encouraged the other to pursue ambitions, celebrated successes, and offered comfort during failures. Together, they became stronger individuals. Challenges still arose, though they no longer intimidated them. Instead of fear, they faced difficulties with patience and understanding. Misunderstandings or disagreements were handled with communication and empathy. They knew that temporary struggles did not define the strength of their bond. Every challenge became an opportunity to demonstrate care, resilience, and commitment. They experienced moments of reflection and gratitude. Looking back at the journey, they saw how far they had come from tentative beginnings and uncertainties to a relationship marked by mutual respect and deep connection. Each obstacle, fear, and misunderstanding had contributed to the depth of their love, making it more meaningful and real. Acts of love became effortless. A message checking in, a thoughtful gesture, or simply being present during difficult times strengthened their connection. They understood that love is shown more through consistent actions than dramatic declarations. Each small act became a thread, weaving a fabric of trust and warmth that grew stronger with time. Forgiveness became a natural part of their relationship. Mistakes were acknowledged without resentment. They understood that imperfection is human and that letting go of minor grievances allowed love to flourish. Each moment of understanding and forgiveness deepened their trust and reinforced the belief that they could face challenges together. Vulnerability was no longer frightening. Sharing fears, insecurities, or doubts became a source of intimacy rather than tension. Both realized that expressing vulnerability strengthened their connection, allowing them to offer genuine support and compassion. Being emotionally open created a safe space where love could thrive. Their connection inspired hope and confidence. They understood that life would continue to present difficulties, but together they could navigate them. This hope was not naive optimism, but grounded in the trust and reliability they had built over time. It became a guiding principle, encouraging them to face life with courage and unity. Shared dreams and goals further cemented their bond. Even small plans, like supporting each other's work or learning new things together, became meaningful. These shared experiences created a sense of partnership and reinforced the understanding that they were facing life side by side. Together, they celebrated achievements and supported each other through setbacks. Love, at this stage, was steady and dependable. It did not require constant validation because it was consistently demonstrated through actions and choices. They had learned that love is nurtured through care, presence, and understanding rather than grand gestures. Every shared smile, supportive word, and attentive moment reaffirmed their commitment. Patience became a defining trait in their relationship. They accepted that neither was perfect, and love was about embracing imperfection with compassion. Mistakes were met with understanding, and successes were shared with joy. This balance created a deep sense of security and fulfillment, allowing them to enjoy their connection fully. Even quiet, everyday moments held significance. A morning greeting, a shared look, or a brief touch carried profound meaning. These interactions reminded them that love is woven into daily life through attention and care, and that consistency often speaks louder than dramatic gestures. They practiced gratitude regularly, acknowledging the presence, support, and patience each brought to the relationship. Challenges and past hardships were appreciated for the lessons they taught, and victories, whether small or large, were celebrated together. Gratitude became a cornerstone, reinforcing the strength and resilience of their love. Their relationship also inspired growth. Both became more empathetic, patient, and resilient. They encouraged each other to maintain individuality while nurturing the shared bond. This balance strengthened both the relationship and their personal development, making them better partners and stronger individuals. Through all experiences, they found reassurance in the enduring nature of their love. They recognized that true connection is not built on perfection, but on commitment, patience, and mutual care. The bond they shared had survived fear, doubt, and adversity, proving its strength and depth. In reflection, they saw that love is not about fleeting emotions or dramatic moments, but about steady presence, empathy, and understanding. Their journey had taught them that true love endures because it is continuously chosen, nurtured, and demonstrated through daily actions. The story continued. not with grand finales, but with quiet, steady growth. Their love became a source of comfort, strength, and inspiration. They faced life together, aware of its uncertainties, but confident in the connection they had built. This enduring bond was the culmination of effort, understanding, and unwavering commitment. Ultimately, their story is a testament to the power of human connection. It shows that love is real, resilient, and profound when nurtured with patience, care, and honesty. Through every challenge, fear, and ordinary day, they had built a love that is inspiring, enduring, and deeply emotional, a love that leaves a lasting impression and offers hope to all who witness it.